Have you ever done something so stupid you had to stop and ask yourself, wow, am I actually dumb? Like maybe you ran face first into a glass door or microwaved your food on a paper plate. Don't do that. Yeah, we've all been there. But do you know what's even dumber than that? These villains' motives. Some villains have tragic, heartbreaking backstories that actually explain why they turn bad. But the ones I'm about to show have motives that are just plain dumb. Let's start with Superman's biggest nemesis and his #1 hater, Mr. Baldy himself, Lex Luthor. Every few years, writers give him a new reason to hate Superman, and most of the time it's dumb as hell. In one of the earliest versions, back when Lex actually had hair, he loses it in a lab accident and blames Superman for it. That's right, the greatest rivalry in comics started because he went bald. Imagine being one of the brightest minds in the DC universe, yet crying over hair loss. Just buy a wig, or rock it like Professor Xavier. Then we got the 78 movie version where Lex's genius plan is to nuke the San Andreas Fault to sink California so his real estate becomes beachfront property, which is dumb because geology doesn't work like that, you psycho. Here he hates Superman only because he sees him as an obstacle to his scheme. Sometimes writers try to give Lex a smarter reason, like he thinks Superman is too powerful and could one day become a threat to humanity. Not gonna lie, that actually sounds like a reasonable concern. I mean, the dude is literally an alien, except this is the same guy who pulls alien tech out of his ass every other week, and it usually ends up putting the people of Metropolis in danger. Another big motive for him is pure jealousy. He hates the fact that Superman didn't have to earn anything. He was just born with godlike powers, while Lex had to grind to become a genius billionaire. And listen, I get it. If you spend your whole life building a billion-dollar empire, and then some farm boy shows up with superpowers, and the public starts treating him like a hero, you'd be salty too. But turning that into a reason to destroy Superman to prove yourself is insane logic. Bro, you could be curing cancer or could have been Iron Man. Instead, you're cosplaying as Dr. Evil. In the new Superman movie, goated movie by the way, Lex's whole motive is, once again, pure jealousy and ego. Just the fact that Superman exists and people love him is enough for Lex to want him dead. Also, in this movie, he even tampers with messages from Superman's parents, which I think he did, making it look like Superman was sent to rule Earth. Some real Viltrumite level shit. And the pettiness doesn't stop there. He even kidnapped Superman's dog, Krypto. Like, bro, lucky for him it's Superman's dog and not John Wick's, or Lex wouldn't be making it to the sequel. And who can forget the Snyderverse Lex? His whole motive, again, is just hating Superman because he's this godlike alien who makes humans feel small and powerless. Oh, and he also hates Superman because God didn't save him from his abusive father. Wait, what? Lex sees Superman as a threat to humanity's potential and achievement. An alien with godlike power? Sure, that's dangerous. And you know what? Fair point. We've already seen aliens trying to conquer the planet way too often. Wait, I think I've been too harsh on him. Maybe his motives aren't dumb after all. Maybe he does care about humanity. Next up is Syndrome, another case of wasted potential, just like Lex. He's a genius millionaire, but also the living example, someone who holds a grudge way too long. His entire villain origin basically comes down to one thing. Mr. Incredible didn't give a rat's ass about him, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. Syndrome started out as a Mr. Incredible fanboy who wanted to be his sidekick, but Mr. Incredible, like any reasonable adult, didn't want a 10-year-old tagging along to fight criminals. Makes sense, right? But Syndrome didn't take the rejection well and held on to it for 15 years straight. He spent half his life plotting revenge just because his hero told him to go home. That has to be one of the lamest excuses for becoming a supervillain ever. Over the years, he used his big brain to invent insane technology and even managed to wipe out most of the superheroes, committing mass murder against the very people he once admired. Also, he could pretend to be the savior, and the whole time, Syndrome was obsessed with proving he was better than real superheroes, especially Mr. Incredible. Imagine dedicating your entire life to plotting revenge just to prove a completely meaningless point. If I were him, I'd rather keep Mr. Incredible busy on the island fighting the robots while I sneak into his house and lay some pipe. And here's why I think Syndrome has one of the dumbest villain motives, paired with even dumber plans. First of all, this man is a literal genius. He built flying rocket boots in his garage. He invented portable zero-point energy weapons that freeze people in midair. His robots were smarter than half the human race. Do you know what governments would have paid for tech like that? He could have retired at 25 with more money than Elon Musk. Instead, he wasted it all on cosplay revenge just because he hates superheroes. Second, Syndrome's whole scheme is unleashing robots in cities so he can swoop in and save the day. Sounds cool. But really, he's just manufacturing terrorist attacks. Like, bro, the only reason anyone needs saving is because he caused the problem. And weren't superheroes already outlawed? I have no idea what he was smoking when he came up with this plan. Third, his Omni droids are impressive, sure, but he programs them to be too smart, learning from every fight, adapting, and getting deadlier. The only thing he forgot was that eventually they stopped taking orders and start turning on him, which is exactly what happened. His own robots betrayed him. And here's where his logic goes full dumbfuckery. After he's done playing hero, his plan is to sell his tech to the public so that when everyone's super, no one will be. Let me get this straight. He's so mad about not being special, and his big solution is to make sure literally no one is special? What kind of backwards plan is this? His motive was never about justice. It was about attention and validation. He just wanted to be seen as a hero, which he never was. In the end, Syndrome wanted to prove he was smarter, stronger, and better than everyone else. But he proved the opposite. His genius killed his reputation, his robots killed his image, and most importantly, his cape. Moving on, we've got Electro. He's the perfect example of how you can give a character god-tier powers and still make them feel small if their motives are pathetic. Electro is literally one of the most powerful villains in Marvel history and a legit member of the Sinister Six, but his motives might be some of the dumbest ever written. And no, I'm not talking about the comics. In the comics, Electro was way more grounded. He was a power line worker who got struck by lightning and suddenly had abilities, and his motives were pretty simple. Money, power, respect, classic working class villain stuff. You might not agree with him, but you get it. He wanted to escape his dead-end life and crime was his ticket out. But in the movie version, oh boy, totally different story. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Max Dillon is just your typical nerd working at Oscorp. Then Spider-Man saves him from being hit by a car once and Max instantly becomes his #1 fan. After that, he falls into a tank of genetically modified electric eels at Oscorp and boom, he turns into Electro. Then comes the big time square scene where he tries to drain power from the lines because he was hungry, I guess. The police show up and try to stop him. Spidey arrives and tries to calm him down, but the crowd cheers for Spidey instead. And Max takes it personally, like really personally. He felt betrayed by his hero. He went from idolizing Spidey to trying to kill him. Not because of some big moral difference, not because of a deep betrayal, not even for something meaningful. Nope, just because he felt ignored, his admiration flipped into hatred and revenge. Look, I get when movies try to modernize things. His suit, sure, cool update. But reducing one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains into a nerd fanboy meltdown is just embarrassing. Electro's powers are insane. He can manipulate electricity, travel through power lines, cause citywide blackouts. With abilities like that, he could have shut down governments, collapsed economies, literally held the world hostage. Instead, he spends most of that power beefing with Spider-Man, like a bitter fanboy who didn't get an autograph. His whole beef is aimed at Spider-Man because he thought Spidey betrayed him, instead of taking revenge on Oscorp, the company that actually exploited him, or on society, which ignored him. But no, his rage is laser focused on Spider-Man, all because Spidey didn't treat him like a best friend. That's like blaming one dude for all your life problems instead of the people who actually caused them. Even after gaining godlike powers, he's still hung up on the betrayal he felt from Spider-Man. He even tries to take over the power grid he designed, but the second Spider-Man shows up, it's all about him again. Bro, you could have been feared, respected, unstoppable. Instead, your villain arc plays out like a bad high school drama. At the end of the day, Electro wasn't defeated because Spider-Man outsmarted him. He was defeated because his motives were too dumb to sustain him. If your entire motive for being evil is basically notice me senpai and hurt feelings, you've officially entered dumb villain territory. Also, there's one more villain from this movie I want to talk about, Harry Osborn. aka the Green Goblin. This dude basically speed ran his character development, and honestly, I think his motive was even dumber than Electro's. His whole reason for becoming a villain is simply because Spider-Man didn't want to donate blood. That's it. So what happens is Harry finds out he has a hereditary disease, the same one that killed his father, Norman Osborn. But instead of, consulting his billion-dollar medical company or literally any world-class doctor, Harry looks at Spider-Man and thinks, yep, that guy in red spandex has the cure. So he begs Peter for Spider-Man's blood since he thinks he knows him personally and is convinced it'll save him. But when Peter refuses, because, radioactive spider blood might actually kill you, Harry loses it because logic is not his strong suit. Anyway, Peter goes to visit him as Spider-Man, literally trying to help, but still refuses his request. And Harry does not take rejection well. Bro owns a pharmaceutical company, but he's out here trying to get blood from Spider-Man that he's not even sure would work. Now here's where it gets even dumber. Instead of using his massive wealth to find safer medical solutions, Harry breaks into Oscorp and injects himself with an experimental goblin serum. I mean, I get it. He doesn't have much time left, but it's still a dumb choice in my opinion. Anyway, it mutates him into... I don't even know what the hell this is. A deranged goblin with bad skin and even worse teeth. After Spider-Man defeats Electro, Harry shows up as the Goblin. Somehow he figures out Peter is Spider-Man, and because he feels betrayed by both Peter and Spidey, he even blames Spider-Man for the failed experiment that turned him into the Goblin. So, he decides to ruin Peter's life. He's the type of guy who takes zero accountability for his actions and somehow thinks society is to blame for everything, and all of this just because Spider-Man refused to give him his blood, even though Peter genuinely cared about him. What the hell is wrong with this guy? Then he goes after Gwen Stacy and succeeds. Gwen dies, and it's all because of Harry's petty revenge trip. But in the comics and Raimi trilogy, both Norman and Harry's Goblin arcs had weight. Norman was ambitious, brilliant, and broken by his own experiments. Harry's story was layered, dealing with his father's legacy, his rivalry with Peter, and his spiraling madness. There was tragedy, there was depth. Harry Osborn in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 could have been a tragic, layered villain like in the comics, but instead, he's just a rich kid throwing a tantrum because Spider-Man wouldn't share blood. Then, he takes it out on Gwen, just so the movie could force a big emotional climax. Green Goblin isn't supposed to feel rushed or shallow. He's supposed to be one of Spidey's greatest enemies. But here, he's basically just a villain with a weak origin story and a dumb motive. Alright, that's pretty much all the villains I think had dumb motives. Let me know if you want a part 2 because trust me, there are plenty more. That's all I've got for you guys today, and I'll see you in the next one.